What's up? Hello?
Hey, how's it
Can
going?
you see us?
Yes, I can.
Hey, what's up, man?
Well, awesome.
We're in there getting off the camera.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, not a problem, man. We just had one other interview right before this, actually, too. So we're like warmed up. Yeah, we're ready to rock.
Oh, awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys being able to take the time to do this. This amazing new album coming out, Skyrunner. I've gotten the chance to be able to check this out over the last few days, and I just love what you guys are doing. I love the atmosphere. I love the different genre styles that are going in there. You know, it can just go from so beautiful to so heavy on the turn of a dime, and this just feels like an amazing album to hear in 2020.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate those words.
Really, really appreciate that, yeah.
Oh, not a problem. So, with that in mind, how did this band come to be?
Yeah, right. I put Thematic together almost a decade ago, and of course, with that, you go through a lot of changes in the process of finding the right guys and all that. Nate and I were the original starting members of Thematic. So we didn't really get this thing off the ground and running until like 2013, and that's when we started working on our first album called The Endless Light. And basically it was just done in a project studio down in his basement, and we made our first album that way and just put it out there. We had a different vocalist at the time, you know.
I didn't even exist.
He wasn't born yet.
He wasn't born.
That's the, I guess, the progenies of Thematic was just starting off from kind of remnants of various other projects that we all came from, essentially. Mm-hmm. And we just wanted to be more free, you know, to write and make music the way we wanted to.
Yeah, and that's totally what I hear when I listen to this album. I mean, it doesn't feel like there's any kind of bars being held. I mean, it's exactly what you guys wanted to make, and that's what I appreciate so much about it, because it does feel like a free album with no restrictions, and I think that's so good for creativity, and it should inspire the people listening to it too, especially if they're a musician as well, showing that you don't have to put any limits on what you can do.
Yeah, that's kind of the underlying message of the album, being it is a concept album. It's really open to that interpretation, but that's kind of where we want people to discover that for themselves too, whether they're a musician or a music lover or just maybe somebody that needs uplift or inspiration to achieve their dreams, whatever that may be. You know, that's kind of the overarching theme out of Skyrunner that we wanted to present as a concept album, but also as a narrative story as well too, as a hero's quest kind of storytelling.
And what was that like on your end? I mean, with the band starting a decade ago and now being able to have Skyrunner coming up, I mean, what is it like to see the evolution of the band in a decade's time?
Oh man, it's kind of mind-blowing because a lot can happen in a decade.
Yeah, a lot of life.
A lot of life, for sure. But it is very exciting and rewarding to come this far with it, and we're just beyond excited to put this album out. It's been over 2 years in the works too, which is, you know, a good amount of time to invest it, you know, as our time, effort, and basically passion into the project.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just really rewarding overall to come this far with it, and it usually just these things take a lot of time to nurture. Really, that's really what it comes down to. Is
it really is a testament to, you know, what you can accomplish if you, from beginning to end, like, see an idea all the way through, which is what you did, instead of rushing anything. This was completely, took as much time as we needed to make this album, and what you get is a great album.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, you know, it's funny because, you know, it's like it's almost the end of the month. I mean, with the album coming out on Friday, but I easily am looking forward to December because I know this is going to be one of my favorite albums when I do the best of 2020 list, because it, again, you know, it's just like I hear those emotions that are going on throughout the album, you know, the inspiring lyrics with the story that's going on there, the musical genre bending that's going on there, but it feels so natural together with the ebb and flow. And again, just like being able to hear you guys being so open and honest about this album, this band, and being so excited about it as well. And it's just, I can really tell this really came from the heart.
Yeah, we're really proud of it.
Yep. Yeah,
Thank you.
I would say honesty was a huge part of it. Yeah.
Oh, it's so great to hear that. And along with that,
that's be humbling too. That you like already get that just a reaction from the few people that have heard this. They've all had really, really awesome things to say, and that's the biggest like reward for us, is that the fruits of the labor are kind of coming through with that, and very positive things being told and heard about it. So that's great, man. Thank you.
Oh, not
Thank
a
you.
problem. And I mean that with complete sincerity too. It's like, even though it's only been a couple days, it's just, I'm really capturing everything that's going on there. And it captures so much musically and thematically, no pun intended, everything that's going on. Everything that I love in music in some way, shape, or form is really shown off here. And it's so cool to see that mixed together so well.
Thank you. Yeah. We are missing one other key member, Ryan Schmidt. He lives in another state, so he couldn't be here this evening to be a part of this discussion, but he's also an integral part of Thematic and bringing also the craftsmanship to engineering the album, because he was a big part of that, along with me and Nate and Adam as well. So yeah, we just want to make sure we threw Ryan in here into the picture too, because it's just not us three only.
And what is that like to be able to have the band be so much like DIY? I mean, being able to have so much of the band being able to create this album, both playing the instruments, singing the songs, and being able to do the behind the scenes work.
Freedom. Freedom to choose whatever we want to do with it too. That's a big piece. We don't really have to answer to anybody other than ourselves right now. There's good and bad from that. There's good in that there's no limits or boundaries, but that at the same time, then you also don't have anybody telling you no.
Yeah, and it made me, especially when I have to like sing some sort of emotional lyrics to, I don't know, just doing it among bandmates and friends is way easier to do that than in front of like a stone cold producer that's staring you dead in the eyes or something like that. So I was able to project myself emotionally way better in the album DIY.
You're giving yourself too much credit. We give you up endlessly.
And again, that's another thing that I love so much about this is you already touched on it before, but being able to take the time and make the album what it should be, rather than feeling like you had to be rushed, you had to cut corners, you didn't get to do what you wanted to do. On this album, you hear that. So this is the vision of the album that it was meant to come out as, and it's so great to see that as the final product.
Yeah.
That means a lot, because the music came first. That was how we wrote this album. It was musically inspiring the story that came from it. So Skyrunner is the title track of the album. It was the first song that we wrote, or Ryan and I wrote for this record. Several years ago, probably 4 years ago, before we even considered doing a record revolving around one song and letting it bloom into what it is now, which is a 14-track, 68-minute long concept album about that influence and character influence and the whole narrative that I was inspired to write about it.
Yeah, and again, it's funny you bring that up because being able to have a vision of one song and then having it bloom out to a 14-track, 68-minute album. To me, when I listen to it, it does not feel like it's an hour and 8 minutes. I mean, it just flows together so well. It's like I don't even realize what time it is by the time it's over because it does flow together so well.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Intentionally, we wanted it to feel that way, and I mean, it just ended up. There was a lot of disparate ideas initially, and they all just, for whatever reason, we bounced off each other so well that it just, flowed within, and the story all encapsulated that emotion throughout. It was pretty incredible, actually. I think there was a little bit of luck in there, probably, too.
Yeah, there was, I think every song we wrote was intentionally for the story and for the album. There was maybe one song that we didn't put on the album because it was not completely flourished and it was going to be an instrumental idea, but it just didn't. It stood out as not being part of that album. It might come back later on in some other album later or something. But yeah, it just was all kind of a huge creative flow for all of us. Yeah. We got really into it. It took 2 years, but it didn't feel like it took 2 years. I guess it flew by, and there was a lot of stages to each step of what we were doing. Crafting the songs became the first and foremost priority, was making sure that we had the ideas put out there and we each shared with each other in a kind of freedom to criticize and be like, well, that's not quite working, let's try this thing, or the drums don't sound great here, let's fix this. Yep. So we were all really open to that process of writing, which really made this so much better, as opposed to just one person writing it and making everybody else do what he wants them to do and just producing kind of thing.
Yeah, it felt like you distilled, between all of us, we were able to distill down the elements and put it through a little bit of the fire, so to speak, just so that you could bring out the best of it and sort of mold it into something that was cohesive too.
Oh yeah, and that's so important. And I love that all four of you are able to share ideas like that and be able to see where the band can go. I mean, there are some bands where there can be one leader and write everything out and there'll be amazing music. But when the whole band is into it and they're able to write their own parts, they're able to do their own fills on the instruments, and being able to figure out what styles are going to be going on with there. I mean, I love the fact that you had to take some stuff out and not just throw everything at the wall and throw it on there because you wanted to make it cohesive. I mean, if there's ever a chance of like, some like atmospheric grindcore coming up in the band or something like that, it wouldn't fit on this album. I mean, you want it to fit together with the concept that you're creating, and it's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whole story just flows through.
We're not opposed to atmospheric grindcore.
No, or anything.
I would love to see that, what you guys can do with that genre.
Thanks. You never know, man. We just keep the options open, and that's just part of the creative process. We kind of had a distinct, color palette for this album, if you want to relate it to art and painting and whatnot. And there's certain distinct atmospheres that we wanted to create, and use of synthesizers and world instruments and acoustic instruments in general. We wanted to make sure everything was real on this album, which there's no sample drums, there's no really sampled anything. Everything's a real instrument or analog synth or real vocals.
Oh, totally. And yeah, and I love that you mentioned that about like how everything is so real with it, and the use of like ideas and styles and a color palette, like you mentioned, for the music side of it. And that's what I love so much about the music video as well for Silence and Thought, because I love the use of the colors that's going on in the album. Some people might not notice that, but like someone like me, I noticed it directly. I love the colors that's being on there, and just seeing how much fun you guys are playing for this video.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah,
that video, we kind of wanted Silence and Thought as a music video to kind of go along with some of the story, but also kind of stand on its own as its own kind of like song and single, so to speak, or just out there for anybody that wants to hear, some fresh music and maybe not get the whole context of where that sits in the story of Skyrunner on the album. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of readily open and accessible, I think, without having to have that context either.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that there was a song like that as well, too, because when you do write a concept album and that time comes, you want to be able to show off a single or two. I mean, when you have everything so connected in a concept, it could be really hard to be able to come up with a song to be able to show that off. But I'm glad, like you said, that Silence and Thought was a song that really could work as a single, both connected to the story and just as a single.
Yeah, it has kind of I think for a lot of the songs too, they have some crossover appeal to a lot of people that maybe have never heard, I guess, anything that would be considered progressive rock or progressive metal. So a little bit more crossover appeal to just anybody just interested in new music overall. So it doesn't completely pigeonhole any genre of music, and that's kind of like our kind of open mindset with being in this band overall. Is we don't want to limit it to just one thing.
We like those different genres as well. There's some thrash elements in some of our music too. We've got some drums that are a little more heavy, and then we've also got the more pop sound in a few songs and metal based. And yeah, we didn't want to limit ourselves.
Yeah, and again, that's so cool when you are able to put all of these ideas and like really filter it out and make some amazing music. And like I said before, it's like there's some really beautiful moments on this album, and then you can get some really heavy moments that are going like on the turn of a dime and stuff like that. And it's just like when you have no limits, obviously a structure for the concept and the music that's going on, but when you are able to show your influences, try new ideas, and when something really sticks and it works, the fact that you do keep it and being able to show off that you can combine different styles and it really can work.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, yeah. That's what really made this band's longevity continue on, and will continue on too as we progress, I guess, and down the road and see where this album kind of takes us independently too. We're not supported by a label at all, and we just want to keep a lot of options open for Thematic and more albums to come. That's kind of the overall goal here.
So, with that in mind, I mean, obviously, with being able to do things DIY and being able to be independent in that way, and the album coming out on Friday, I mean, that's so cool to see that. But what's going to be going on after the release of the album?
There's some things that we haven't really announced as of yet. We want to keep kind of close to the pocket right at the moment, but we do have a lot of opportunities lined up, and definitely shows. We want to do a lot of shows, of course, and get this album out on the road, right? So I think that's going to be the push for the next year and a half at least before we decide to maybe start working on another record if that's the course.
Yeah.
But we're always going to be working on stuff anyway. So there'll be a lot of things leading up to that. But we do have for a companion release with Skyrunner, the album itself. Once that goes out, probably about a month or so from now, we also have something kind of special to follow up with the album, actually, and it's a film.
Yeah.
It's a film for the album that we kind of kept secret over the last year that will be ready to be released a little bit after. We just wanted to give the album some breath, some room for it to be out on its own and do its thing and let people have their interpretation, take it all in. But we've actually hired an animation team to come up with a complete animated film for Skyrunner and the whole story. So that way it can kind of also have some appeal to people that maybe don't, who need the visual aesthetic and the story to kind of go off of. And it's also cool because it's another kind of multimedia experience overall and a concept album. Kind of throws back to, like The Wall, for instance, Pink Floyd, in a completely different modern way, of course, because we're doing an animated video game art style, like 8-bit art kind of style video for it. So it looks like almost like a video game you're playing through and seeing the whole story play out. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's got me so intrigued and excited to be able to check that out. I mean, as a gamer myself, I mean, the fact that it's going to be like in that 8-bit animation style and it's going through the whole story of Skyrunner, I mean, I can't wait for that to come out. I mean, that's definitely going to be right up my alley.
But this is kind of the first we've talked about it, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to debut. To bring it to light, because we haven't made any announcements. We've teased like very, very little about it, and very few people that are close to the band even know about it. As I've worked really, like personally, I've worked with the artist on the story and storyboards, and I used to be an artist as well too, and do a lot of art and throughout college and all that. But
he's still an artist.
So I have a passion for it. So I wanted to bring that along with the music and have kind of this experience brought to new fans of the music, and bring a whole different audience and potentially to the band.
So with that in mind, I mean, obviously with getting this whole thing all together and being able to hire an animation team to be able to do it, I mean, how much back and forth was there to be able to get the vision that you were looking for with Skyrunner?
Oh, gosh. It's been before we even sent the album to get started final mixing and mastering. I had been working with them as far as coming up with the idea, making sure they were a good fit too, and the visual aesthetic that we were looking for. Because it's video game art, but what's it going to look like? So yeah. And so far, I hit it all on the head. Character designs and just the overall aesthetic and look and the whole universe, I guess, of the landscape and how it looks and translates over. Was really fitting of kind of what I had in my mind overall and what I was drawing out on paper and terrible scribbles and storyboards, which aren't that pretty.
No, we'll sell them someday for you. Lots of money.
But yeah, there's being it's international too, so you always have to kind of just be patient, take your time with who you're working with, and I respect obviously all the artists that worked with us in collaboration. I mean, the album artwork alone is done by Aria Fawn, and she's an amazing painter. So that's an original piece of art that she did an interpretation of when I let her hear the music, and I just wanted her to come up with like a vision of what she saw in the music, just from hearing the music, not even hearing any of the lyrics really. And that's the album cover right there, which kind of ties the whole concepts and story all together in one piece, which is what art should really do.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna ask about that next too, about the album artwork itself, because it is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I love the colors that's being used. I love the vision that's going on there. And when I do look at it, when I listen to the album, it's like I really do get an idea of what's going on with it visually. And now again, just the fact that there is going to be an animated film to be able to go along with Skyrunner, and just being able to see all these different visions of how the story comes together. I mean, it's just so cool to see that a band doing this in 2020, because when you put out a concept album like this and you have a story you want to tell and themes that you really want to get across, I mean, the fact that you can do it in so many different ways, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tremendous, and it's that was kind of our vision for this project. It just kept, let's see how far we can go with this, and where's where the boundaries are that we can push with it being an independent band, and also just completely supporting it ourselves, 100%.
We're super passionate about it too. It's just it got every one of us excited at different moments when we were working on it. You could see it in the room. I told Kevin, we've worked together many years on music together, but just like this, I told him there was something different about what we were doing, and it was hitting some kind of a resonating chord with all of us. And I don't know if it was just more honest or what we were doing with it, but it felt just powerful. So
Great synergy,
yeah, while you're in it.
Yeah. And again, that's another reason why I do love this album. Again, when it comes to the concept and the story that's going on, is just like you touched at in the beginning, is about trying to make it positive and uplifting and stuff like that. Because, it's like, of course, when you listen to a lot of progressive music, listen to a lot of rock and metal and stuff, there's a lot of depressing overtones that can happen. There's starting to be more of a rise of more bands like trying to do something more positive rather than just negative. But I love the fact that, it has such a great touching message throughout the album, and you're able to explore that, because I think there needs to be more of that as well, especially when there are people that are feeling so down. They want to be able to go to music and hear something that's going to be inspiring to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we wanted to convey a lot of the human emotions that we've all felt and grown through, and that's why it's kind of the hero's journey storytelling style that's done through this is kind of something that's relatable for most people, and I think there's something for everyone on the album. There's something that will resonate with most folks that listen to the songs. They should all be able to take something away from it, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm totally one of them as well. I mean, as a longtime sufferer of different mental health issues like anxiety and depression and things like that, I love hearing, like you said, that hero's journey kind of story, and being able to overcome the adversity that's going on and being able to come out the other side a better person. And, that is such a struggle for so many people, being able to find that way to get through there. And, again, just being able to hear it in this kind of music and being able to hear that message in just another way of just trying to continue to follow through and try to become better, try to make life more worth living. I mean, that is so important, and that's another reason why I really feel this is going to be one of my favorite albums come the end of the year, because it does hit home with me so hard when it comes to that.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that.
Oh, not a problem. And well, with that, thank you for making the music and making these themes and, just making this great concept, because again, when I listen to it, it puts a great smile on my face, and I need that in 2020. And I know there's other people that are going to be feeling the same way when this comes out on Friday.
That's awesome, man. And we are out, just ecstatic and humbled by that, man. So thanks a lot for taking the opportunity to enjoy the music and take it for what it's worth, and really listening to the story being told, because that's ultimately what we just really wanted. We don't care how people get the music, what format they get it in. We just want to make sure they enjoy it for what it's worth and take something from it, at least at the end of the day.
It's no longer going to be our album on Good Friday. It will be the world's. So yeah.
And I think with that message, that's an amazing note to end this interview on. And again, thank you guys so very much for taking this time to be able to talk to me about everything going on in the world of Thematic. And of course, Skyrunner coming out this Friday. It's great to see how many sites are going to be available on. I mean, whether you're listening on Spotify, whether you buy it through Apple Music or iTunes or something like that, or just being able to check out the cover art alone, and just like if you buy the album and you get that full picture of the album artwork and you're able to visualize it that way, I think it's going to help out a lot of people. And again, breaking the news about the animated film version of Skyrunner that's going to be coming out. I mean, that's going to be so cool to be able to see that and listen to that and really see the story that you have in mind and the visions that's going on there. And I thank you guys so very much for taking the time to be able to talk to me about all of it.
That's awesome. Thank you again. Yeah, Josh, it's been a pleasure, man. Yep.
Oh, not a
We'll
problem.
have to do it again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime that you guys have something to promote, be it touring, that next releases of music, anything like that, I'd love to be able to catch up again and be able to help promote you guys the best way I can.
Perfect. No, that's great, man. That's great. Yeah, thematicofficial.com is what we were trying to funnel everybody to, because it just ultimately you can go download Skyrunner straight from our website, but it's more of set up to pay what you want for it. It's kind of that mindset of we want it out there and we don't care how it gets out there, but it does directly support the band more than other avenues of obtaining music, which there are really many ways to obtain music, in many ways. But that's ultimately, we just want to push people to thematicofficial.com for downloading the album, basically. If they want to get it, there it is.